welcome back to the channel. Today is going to be a very good one because we are finally starting day one of this huge project that I know some of you have been waiting for. It's just been a little bit of a delay because I had to get all of the tools and all the equipment necessary in order to get this finally on the way. But as I mentioned today is day one of the GT350 engine rebuild. I never thought that I would be saying that, but here we are. So today we are going to be focusing on one thing only, and that is dropping the engine. I'm excited, I'm nervous, but most of all, I'm looking forward to this. So we're gonna be disconnecting every little thing out of the engine bay, dropping the engine, and then getting it out of the way. So let's get started. This project that I'm going to be working on is by far the most complex thing that I've ever done. I just like working on cars, and I do like taking on a challenge. So there's something wrong with my car, so I'm determined to get it fixed. And for those of you that are saying, oh, but she has help, of course I have help. This is something that I've never done before, so of course I'm gonna reach out to people that have done this and have more experience and more knowledge when it comes to this subject. So by that, I've had many people reach out to me that have done engine rebuilds, many Ford techs. They've given me many tips and suggestions, so I will be following everything that they've told me. And I also have the Ford service manual here that I'll be following. Now, I'll only be following this like about 50%, and let me explain why. So the reason that I'll be following the Ford service manual around 50% before any of you start freaking out is because speaking with Ford techs that have already done engine rebuilds and already removed the engine from this car, they did suggest to me that it is better dropping the engine because the Ford service manual does say for you to raise the engine and remove it that way. But they did explain to me that it's probably the most easiest and the most safest way to just drop it. So that's exactly what I'll be doing. So that's why I'll be following it 50%, because those instructions, some of them are preparing you for you to raise the engine up. So that's why I have to just determine what to follow and what not. But now let's get started. So the first steps that we're gonna do is remove the fuel pump fuse and the injector fuse. Then we're going to start up the car, make sure it doesn't crank just to depressurize the system. Then we'll come back here, remove the main fuel line, then disconnect the battery, and then drain the coolant. So let's do all that, and I'll see you guys after. We've taken care of all of the steps of the first part. Now the only thing left is to drain the coolant. Now usually you can just lift the car, remove the cover, and then drain it. But since I do have this large front splitter, then it's just going to be easier for me to remove the front bumper. So what I'll do next is raise the car, remove the wheels, the wheel welds, and then take off the front bumper. Now I've done this a million times, so removing the bumper is like super easy to me. I know it like the back of my hand. So let's go ahead and take care of that, and then we can drain the coolant. Coolant is drained, took care of that, and I also took advantage and drained the oil because that's one of the future steps, and I thought, you know what, might as well take care of it now since I'm underneath the car. And speaking about future steps, I'm just thinking, well, I might as well also take off the drive shaft because that's connected to the trans, and the trans is connected to the engine, and then that's gonna end up coming off once I drop the engine, so I'm gonna take care of that. But before taking care of that, I need to remove the X-pipe because it's in the way. Let's take care of those remaining things, and then we should be done with underneath the car, at least for now, and then let's drop the car and then continue working on the top. So the drive shaft is off. Let me tell you that this was such a pain, at least for me, just because it was so awkward. This two-piece drive shaft just made it very uncomfortable. It was so heavy. This drained my energy trying to remove it, but I'm so glad that I finally was able to take it off. And now that it's off, I don't think I'll be putting it back on the car once I'm ready to put everything back. I think I'm gonna go with another one. So anyways, back to the fun part, which is right here on top, back to the engine bay. So there's quite a few things that I need to remove and disconnect. So first we're gonna start off with removing the coolant reservoir, intake, there's a ground wire over there, the fan, there's some coolant hoses, the AC belt, heater hoses, some PCM connectors, and I think that's it for now. If there's anything else that I end up disconnecting or removing while I'm doing this, then I'll just come back and let you guys know after that. For now, I'm probably like about 50% done. This has been something that is quite involved. I'm already so tired, but we have to keep going, and we're just getting to the most complicated part, which is making sure that everything is disconnected when dropping the engine. So let's keep going. This is getting crazy here, but I just wanted to give you guys an update. So I went ahead and removed the power and ground cables from the battery and the fuse box, and that's this harness right here. I just laid this on top of the engine. I also removed the remainder of the coolant hoses. This made a mess when removing them, but I just plugged them in with paper towels. One thing that I did forget to mention to you is this evap hose. So I went ahead and disconnected this as well. Now, as far as the fan that I did tell you that I was going to remove, I haven't. I just left it alone just because I really don't see a point to, because there's enough room and I don't think this is going to affect when dropping the engine. So I think that's it for now. Oh yes, these heater hoses. These heater hoses were such a pain to remove just because there's limited space here and it's such a weird angle, but I finally managed to pull them out. Now, another thing that I didn't tell you is the accessory belt. So I did end up removing that, and now the AC belt that I did tell you that I was going to remove, the instructions do call for you to cut it. So that's exactly what I did. So I'll be needing a new one once I'm ready to install everything back on the car. So I think that's pretty much it. Oh yes, I also disconnected all these PCM connectors, but I think we're pretty much done here other than removing the AC compressor and then also the steering shaft. So for now, let's raise the car and let's see what needs to be removed from the bottom as far as some suspension parts and other things. So let's do that. Now that the car is raised, there's a few things that we need to take care of here. So we need to disconnect the spindle from the strut. We need to hang the calipers. Now, as far as the trans cooler, we can leave that here. It's not going to be in the way of dropping the engine. But if we come down here, we do need to disconnect these oil lines because they are in the way of these brake lines once we drop the engine. We also need to remove the AC compressor, the steering shaft, and I think that's pretty much it. But I will be calling it a day today because I am exhausted. This has been such a long process. So I'll see you guys tomorrow where we'll take care of all of this and then finally drop the engine. So I'll see you guys then. So it's the next day, and today we're starting off with removing the AC compressor. So there's 3 bolts that attach it to the block. So I'm going to go ahead and remove those just because when we drop the engine, we don't want the engine to come and bring the AC lines with it. And then after that, we're going to move on to disconnecting these oil lines. If there's any oil in them, then I can drain those as well. And then once we have those 2 things taken care of, then we can move on to the suspension parts. So let's go ahead and take care of that now. We're really close to finally getting to drop the engine. So I already took care of all the suspension parts, and I did end up hanging these calipers from these zip ties. So these are rated to carry 75 pounds, but just in case, I have another one there. So that's the same for both sides. And I really did think that we're done and we're ready to drop it until I came across this AC line. So I actually reached out to Mr. Honey Badger himself, Kevin. So I asked him a few questions, sent him a few pictures, and he told me that these transcooler lines actually need to be disconnected. But before I do that, I need to drain the transmission fluid. So once again, here we go. It's like I'm draining so many fluids here, and then we can disconnect these. And these are pretty easy, just like those oil lines that I disconnected earlier. So after we do that, there's only 2 bolts that I need to remove for the shifter, and then we should be done. I think this time we're going to be green once I take care of that. I'm just gonna give it one sweep around here just to make sure that everything is okay, if there's any bolts that I might have missed, and then I'll just take care of that, and then we can proceed with dropping the engine. So how I plan on doing that is dropping the engine on some pieces of wood that will be on top of some furniture movers, and then that way, once I raise the car, then I can just slide the engine out of the way, which is another idea that I got from Honey Badger looking at his videos. I think we are almost there. Let's take care of these last few things, and then we can get to the good part that I've been waiting for such a long time. Time to finally drop the engine. So this is exactly what I was talking to you about. This is the setup that I'm using in order to drop the engine and then be able to easily slide it out. Now I did need Chris's help for this because this is a very important step, and I do not want to mess up when dropping this engine. So these are those wooden planks, and on top of those dollies, I'm also using these quick jack extensions, so I have those aligned under the K-member, and then I also have these other blocks here. So I just made sure that everything is properly aligned, everything's level. Now the only thing that we couldn't figure out is how to place the transmission on that dolly to make sure that everything was leveled out. So since we couldn't do that, then right now it's just resting on a traditional jack. Once we lower the engine, then we'll be able to place it on that dolly again and then just be able to slide it out. So we are almost there. Now I'm just going to be raising the car slowly, little by little, because I want to come back here and check that nothing is getting stuck here when dropping the engine. So we'll do that very patiently, and then after that we'll finally have this engine out of the car. So let's do this. Let me show you why it's very important to take your time with this and always come back and check everything. So I found 3 things. The first one is that zip tie all the way there at the end from this heater hose. I didn't catch that earlier, so I can either cut the zip tie or disconnect the heater hose. I think I'll just go ahead and cut it. Then the second thing is this other hose. It goes to the brake master cylinder. I'm not really sure how I missed that, honestly, so I need to go ahead and disconnect that. And then the third thing is that this sway bar is going to need to come off, just because if we see this brake line right here, so you see how it's free, but then it goes diagonally under the sway bar, so that's in the way of dropping the engine. So I need to also remove the sway bar. So I need to take care of these 3 things, and then we can proceed with lifting up the car. But that just shows that patience is key, and I am so glad that I caught that early. Let's take care of that and then continue with this. something else came up. So I'm not sure if you guys saw on camera, as I was raising the car, this whole radiator assembly just kept dropping with the engine too. So I immediately stopped because that's not supposed to happen. So then I came here and then I saw it was all the way towards the bottom, and then nothing was holding it here where it's supposed to. So I'm not sure if there's some pins that are supposed to just hold it up in place here, but there wasn't any there, and I didn't remove anything from here. So what I did is I just had Chris raise it up, and then I just guided it through here, and I just put these little bolts in through these little towers. So now it's good. It shouldn't be going anywhere. So we're good to go on that. Everything else here is good. That brake line is clear. There's nothing here towards the back. This harness is fine. So I think we're green, but you know, I've said that way too many times before. So let's just continue and see. And you see that line that's right there? So that's attached to the transmission. And I noticed when I was lifting the car up, it just caused the engine to slide forward. And I thought, hold up, there's something else. So I came and checked and I saw that that's attached. So I'm going to go ahead and disconnect it, and then we can proceed again with lifting the car. Look at this. The engine is finally dropped after all that work, after all that time. It's out of the car, and this is huge. I mean, when you open up the hood, you see that the engine is hood, but seeing it here out of the car in person, that's just completely different. I am just in awe looking at this. Now, it was a lot of work. I kept coming back, double, triple checking, but guess what? I missed something, and it's very disappointing to me. So look at this line right here. This ended up ripping on both sides. It's just a sensor. And you know what the funny thing is? That I'm just like, why? How did I miss that? I ended up removing this, but I didn't disconnect the sensor for some reason. And it just kills me because I kept coming back and coming back. I checked like 4 million times, but my attention was just on this darn AC compressor the entire time that I just didn't see this. But I don't think all hope is lost because these are copper wires, so I think I could just solder it back together. You know how I ended up finding out? So I was raising the car, then I heard something snap, and I thought, you know what? That's not good. So I came to this side because I heard it here, and then I saw that the cable snapped, and I thought, oh my goodness, how did I miss that? And I don't remember disconnecting that from the other side. So then I came here and I saw I didn't disconnect it, and that must have snapped a long time ago, but I just didn't pay attention. I didn't hear it because of this freaking AC compressor. But this is it. I mean, I guess for this being my first time, I'm going to say it went pretty well for that one thing that just disappoints me every single time that I look at it. And another thing that I also did forget to tell you is that I did do this before dropping the engine, is that you do need to remove the shift boot and the shifter from on top of the car because you don't want when the transmission drops for it to just make a mess and then just break something. So I did take care of that first, but I am just in awe. Let me just give you a quick walk around of here of the engine. This is just insane. Never did I think that this would be happening here with my Shelby GT350. So this is it, guys. If you were to ask me when I first started this channel if I would ever be doing this, I say no freaking way. And I'm about to get very emotional, but no, I'm not. Just because, man, I never thought that I would be doing this, especially on my own GT350. But hey, a problem came. I said, you know what? I'm going to fix it. And I was really hoping that I could do this, but deep down, I did have doubts. I'm not going to lie. But this is just the beginning. I just dropped the engine, and you know what? I couldn't have done it with all the support, with all of you reaching out that helped me. I thank you so much, except for this, but this was my mistake. This was my fault. So now the next thing is going to be disassembling the engine. So this is going to be, this is the start of a new series. I have a huge project that I need to take on, and I'm just out of words. Just looking at this, I'm just like, wow. So I'm going to leave this here because I'm going to need Chris's help to move this out of the way. But I mean, overall, this is it. You guys just saw it here. I am so happy, but a little bit disappointed. But overall, I feel proud, I feel accomplished, and I'm looking forward for what's to come. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.